Welcome to the Primo's Musings podcast.
Good morning. We're almost down to 4 weeks of NFL done, and week number 5 kicked off last night with one of the fantastic games that came down to the wire. Went to the overtime between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons made a huge splash in the season. During the preseason, they went and got Kirk Cousins, and they didn't know what kind of player they were going to get coming back from an injury. And Kirk Cousins played one of his best games that he played. It was pretty much a track meet throughout the game. Baker Mayfield played amazing, didn't have a turnover. Tampa was definitely in the driver's seat towards the end of the regulation time, and was about to close the game, but a turnover turned the game around, helped the Falcons tie the game, and then take it to overtime. And the overtime, once they got won the coin toss, they pretty much marched down the field and won the game on a touchdown. And Kirk Cousins threw for over 500 yards. And Baker Mayfield threw for 180 yards, but he had 3 touchdowns, played well, good running game. I mean, Drake London from Atlanta had 154 yards. And the game was going back and forth throughout. Atlanta started jumping 7-0, but throughout the day, the total yards Atlanta had was 550 yards to Tampa's 333. Tampa had a much better rushing yards in terms of balance. They had 160 yards rushing. But this was definitely, as I mentioned, a track meet. And Kadero Hodge, who actually replaced Drake London when he got hurt in the overtime, just got in and then took the ball to the house. And thereby Atlanta now wins. And it makes it very interesting right now in that division, because now it's 3-2, both Atlanta and Tampa. So seems like the early bet for the Falcons has been paying off with Kirk Cousins. And they were pretty close, and they had a lot of close games this season. I expect them. They're going to play a lot of games in the Dome. They've got a great offense, good defense with Jared and Judon, and I feel that they would grow into the season and they would be a very dangerous team to contend with if Kirk Cousins can be mistake-free. So that's the games that we had yesterday. And when I think about what's in store for the Sunday games, we do start very early for those on the East Coast. It's going to start at 9:30 a.m. with the Jets and Vikings traveling all the way to London to play. This is a very exciting matchup. This has a lot of storyboards written to it, with Jets had picked Sam Darnold as their number 1 pick 8 years ago. He kind of went through a lot of teams, but settled in Minnesota. Seems to be a great fit for him. They're 4-0. And the Jets are actually coming off a very poor loss at home on a rainy Sunday last week against Bo Nix and Denver Broncos. And that's got to hurt. The Jets had every reason to jump on top of the AFC East. With the Bills losing to the Ravens, that was their opportunity to make that leap into first place. But they could not do it. But I do think that the Jets, some of the things that I do see on the Jets side of things are play calling on the offensive side. They have a very good defense. Their defense played well. And the offense definitely, I think Rodgers and his receivers are still trying to get on the same page. But if they beat Minnesota on the road, or I think it is actually a Vikings home game, I believe. If they beat them in London, this gets them back on track. But the Vikings are excellent in their own way. They got a top 10 defense. Their offense is, Sam Darnold has found a new lease of life in Minnesota. And I definitely feel that this won't be an easy game at all. I think it's going to come down to the end. I'm predicting the Jets to squeak out a win against the Vikings, and that puts a lot of pressure on the Bills, who play actually, they go on the road to play the Texans after suffering a brutal loss in Baltimore. And talking about Baltimore, they are playing at the Bengals. The Bengals finally won a game last week against Carolina, but now the Bengals play the Ravens. The Ravens are coming off a great 25-point victory at home against the Bills. But Ravens are some teams, sometimes I do see them um, not showing up for some of these big games. And let's see which kind of Ravens team shows up. Joe Burrow and the Bengals, they always start slow. I feel that the Ravens may not win this game. I think Joe Burrow and Cincinnati Bengals are going to win this game at home against the Ravens. The other exciting game I just talked about was Bills and Texans. Texans are 3-1. Bills are 3-1. This is a good litmus test for both the teams to see who can challenge the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC East. Both teams are still leading their division, and the Texans are playing much better football with Stephon Diggs. This is actually could be a revenge matchup between the Stephon Diggs, who was actually with the Bills, who is now with the Texans. So there are a lot of storylines again, just like the Jets and Vikings game. So it's going to be very exciting to see both these teams battle it out. It's a home game for the Texans, and I feel that the Texans are going to come up victorious in this matchup, just because they have a much better defense than the Bills. So that's where I see it going. The other interesting matchup is the two other interesting matchups I do want to talk about, because I don't think I have enough time to go through everything. But the Saints and the Chiefs, which is Monday night, and then the Cowboys and Steelers, which is Sunday night. The Cowboys and Steelers, they've battled in the past. They've had some exciting battles, even in the Super Bowl. Two storied franchises, both of them trying to win the next one. The Steelers haven't won in a while. The Cowboys haven't won in almost 2 decades. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. Cowboys are going through a lot of struggles in terms of their defense. They've lost Micah Parsons for 4 weeks at least. Lawrence is out too. And the Steelers are coming off a loss. They were the last one of the undefeated teams that fell last week to Indy. Justin Fields played well enough, but if you are going to compete with the Cowboys, it's going to be a battle down. But it's at the Steelers. It's at the Three River Stadium, or whatever they call the new stadium right now. But the Cowboys are going through some kind of an identity crisis in my mind. They're still trying to figure out what kind of team they are. I think the Steelers do know what kind of team they are. They're a defense first and limit the turnovers on the offense, run the ball, which they do have Najee Harris and Justin Fields, who can also scramble. So I feel that this is the game where Steelers like to keep the game in a much less than 20 points. And if that is the case, I would favor the Steelers over the Cowboys in this matchup. The Cowboys could still upset the Steelers on the road, but if the Steelers play like the way they do with their excellent defense, with TJ Watt leading the way, and playing, like I said, turnover free football, I favor the Steelers in this matchup. The last one I do want to touch upon is the Saints and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are a very interesting 4-0 team. They are they 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 are right now, if you ask me, they are 4-0. This reminds me of the Patriots team many years ago. I think it was 2015 where they were 10-0. And it seemed like every game they were in this game, they were out of the game, but But they somehow, Mahomes and Chiefs, somehow they come up with a great defensive stop, great offensive uh, drive, and then they win the game finally. This is same thing that they won. If you look at all the 4 games they won against Baltimore, Baltimore had a chance to tie the game. They didn't. They were not able to tie the game at the end. They were lucky against the Bengals on a 4th and 16 call, a defensive pass interference. The Atlanta, it was a very close game, won by only 5 points. And the last game against the Chargers, they were down 10-0. They lost Rashi Rice, but Mahomes and Chiefs, they never flinch. And like I said, this is the hallmark of a very good team led by one of the greatest coaches, Andy Reid, and one of the greatest quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes. So, one thing that the Saints will have to contend with is the fact that they don't have Taysom Hill. There's Swiss Army knife who can play the tight end, quarterback, running back. It's going to be a challenge for any team playing him. He did score 2 touchdowns against the Falcons last week. He's been running the ball well, but Derek Carr is someone that the Chiefs are very familiar with, having when he was playing for the Raiders. So I feel that this is going to be at the Chiefs. So I'm going to put my money on the Chiefs on this one, despite the fact that the New Orleans will keep the game close. Chiefs will find a way to win this game. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. Mahomes has not really played well. 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But if you look at the record, it's 4-0. And right now, any team in the AFC has to go through Kansas City. And the more they win, it's going to be very difficult catching up. Because the way the AFC is shaping up right now with the Bills and Texans and Jets and other teams and Steelers, every team is actually trying to beat the other teams, and it's going to be a battle at the end while the Chiefs keep winning. And that's going to give them enough cushion to sew up the first number 1 seed, which means the road goes through Arrowhead. So that's the way I see it, and maybe another Super Bowl run for them, unless they have any other injuries, more injuries for them. But other than that, there are some other exciting division matchups. We have the Colts and Jaguars playing. You got the Raiders and Broncos, 2 interesting teams. Denver coming off a big win against Raiders, against Jets, and then Denver now hosting the Raiders. And then you got the Packers and Rams also on tap on Sunday. So these are the matchups that we have today for this week. And I look forward to some exciting matches. And let's see how they all turn out. Thank you again for listening, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you for listening. Primo will be back soon.